We're about to go live, just in case anybody's looking at the read-only feed.
Okay.
Guess we can give folks a few minutes just in case anybody wants to watch.
Yeah. So what is actually on the agenda today?
So again, like no official agenda. This is all open discussion in case people want to talk about anything related to cloud or automation or any of those things. The couple of topics that I have in my back pocket in case folks don't have anything they want to talk about. Cloud backups, just because I know it's something that you and I, need to figure out like the best way to go about doing that.
Yeah.
And then proliferation of duplicated effort in terms of configuration management and open source cloud software.
Yeah, I'd like to actually hear what people actually want to do with their backups.
Yeah.
I mean, we can make all the plans we want, but if it's not what they want, then it's all for naught.
Right, exactly. Like I know you've talked in the past about how backups for the most part are about correcting accidental deletions. I would love to know like how people are actually using their backups in practice on servers, how often they need to go go to the crates and dig something up, what they would like to do instead of regular backups if they don't want to go that way, that sort of stuff. Of course, wishful thinking, I would love it if we could just rebuild any server from scratch at any moment. But there's always that gap where backups of some sort are going to be important.
Right.
And kind of like I've joked before, I would love to push all of the backup stuff to the database team if possible. Have the servers be totally stateless, have all the data in the database, and then let them figure out backups.
Right, that's what I would like to do.
Yeah. It's always nice if we can push everything off to the DBA team.
Yeah. I mean, if we've got stuff in Git, it gets backed up, data gets backed up to the database team, and no one has to think about it anymore. So, I mean, that's really what we want to do. But I hope that people don't. I think there's a tendency to. And we've talked about this, I guess, is mostly for anyone who happens to be watching this. But if there's a tendency to think that if they put their data out there on an object store, that's a backup. Well, it kind of is, but it's not managed, it's not versioned, it's not protected. You can delete that as easily as you can delete something else. So.
Yeah, I mean, so like I'll raise my hand here. As a developer, it's super easy for me to put a copy of something out in an object store, but am I good about making sure that that data is always up to date in the object store? No, not always.
Well, and because it's not about the reliability of the storage medium.
Yeah.
It's not about that at all.
So what have you used for backups before? I mean, so of course we've used stuff internally at NIC. Do you have experience with anything else backup wise?
They're all traditional backup products like Tivoli Storage Manager, Veritas Net Backup,
right?
Legato that became EMC Networker,
right?
But so most of the traditional file backups. The idea is that you can, restore one file when you need it. Of course, the whole idea of backing up a snapshot of a virtual machine is fairly recent,
right?
In this world, but but I've never been in a place where we actually did that.
Yeah, that's I was looking, so when I think about in terms of places that we should look up to in terms of the way that we do cloud, Rackspace always comes to mind. I just posted a link in chat here. So Rackspace talks a little bit about how you can do traditional file-based backup if you're in their managed tier of support. But then they also talk a little bit about image backup. So it's interesting that they walk their customers through both paths and talk about some of the pros and cons of each approach type.
Yeah, so I mean, even like on so Amazon provides they provide machine images for Veritas or Commvault or various numbers of traditional backup software that you just run in your tenant space, and it has a driver for S3 and it backs up there.
Right.
That's I still think that's a valid path for our users to back their data up, and we can have a managed server system, or managed service ourselves. We can even provide a shared backup network through Neutron to select clients, so that if we had a single multi-tenant system,
right,
we can service to certain clients on a certain network and share that to these certain tenants.
Right. Yeah, so I noticed there's a couple of different open source solutions out there. Amanda was kind of at the top of the list.
Yeah.
And the interesting thing about Amanda is it looks like that the way that backups are done, it's actually a pull from the backup server over SSH typically. And that's kind of interesting just out of the idea that we have one central location that is starting those backups. And so we can very quickly know when backups stop happening for a client.
Right.
Which seems like kind of a big deal. Otherwise, it'd be really easy for us to set up backup infrastructure, tell people they can use it, and they assume they're using it, and in fact, they're not actually backing anything up every night, and then they're angry when they realize that they can't restore something.
Right.
Bacula as well is the other one that comes up a lot, and then it looks like, I mean, this thing has a pretty website, BearOS. It looks like it's a Bacula fork. I haven't figured out what the difference is between the two yet, other than the fact that one's website is prettier than the other one.
I guess Bruno's not going to join us today.
Yeah, he wasn't even marked as a maybe, so I didn't invite him into the chat. Looking through Slack now to see if anybody's pinged me, and nobody yet.
Yeah. Read-only viewers right now?
We have 0 viewers. So we are talking to ourselves, and of course it's being saved to YouTube.
Okay.
Yeah, I kind of have the feeling that this is the sort of thing that it'll either take a while to get going and be popular, or it just it never gets popular.
Yeah. So yeah, Amanda looks, I mean, or Z-Manda, I guess, is the enterprise variant of Amanda.
Right.
That we can pay for, feel good about ourselves because we paid for it. That seems to be the most mature solution that I've seen. That's open source. Otherwise, beyond that, probably the best commercial option that I've seen for OpenStack is Commvault. They support Swift as a storage backend.
Okay.
There's a lot of vendors who support S3.
Right.
But they're the only ones that I've seen that will go to, they have a driver just for Swift.
Okay, right.
So, and that's a pretty well-known solution. So that may be something that we should look at going with. Probably won't happen immediately.
Was that COM or CON Vault?
COM.
Okay. Okay, yeah. So COMM vault.
Right.
Is that it?
Now, the other ones that support S3, would they work with Swift and the S3 API compatibility? I don't know. They might. They might allow you to plug in your own URL, but
Yeah, and that probably gets into that gray area we were talking about. I can't remember if it was in the office hours last week or somewhere else where, yeah, the APIs are typically pretty compatible until you're depending on something that's kind of deep under the covers that doesn't get caught by one of the other server implementations.
yeah.
So it'd be worth trying to see if it would work. I have heard that Adric and Allison are both watching. It's just not updating the viewers count in the lower right-hand corner for me.
So the one thing that I looked at a lot of the backup stuff for a while. And one thing I did find or realize during this was we're probably going to have to do something completely different than we do today if we want this to all be self-contained. Avamar works for backups. We back up Avamar today. They're not going to do anything but back up to EMC Avamar appliances.
Right.
We are going to have to do something different. But there's a question of, do we keep using the traditional file system type backups, or do we just let people use snapshot volumes and backup volumes to the cloud directly? So that's something that we really need to hear from our users. What do they want to do? And educate them really on what the ramifications of that are. We're going to use a lot of disk space like that if we're not careful. So if we get into a situation where we're actually doing show back or even charge back, that's going to be a pretty big deal.
For sure. Yeah, I mean, it would be really easy to set up very fine-grained entire file system snapshots that then go off and eat all of our object storage just because there's no financial ramification for not doing that.
Right. And it's really a pretty inefficient way to back things up too, because you're backing up everything. You're not selectively saying this is my important data that I need to back up. I can recover the rest of it from a fresh install or from Puppet or wherever.
Yeah, I mean, so presumably what, like 95% of a server is base operating system, not necessarily data important to the application.
Exactly. So I think there's an idea that backing up stuff in the cloud is snapshots and volume copies. I don't know that that's necessarily true. I'm sure it works in certain situations, but I don't think it's always appropriate.
Yeah, I mean, like, so I have my own personal services that I run on AWS. I use snapshots for that because it's cheap and easy, but I also only have one server and it's small. So yeah, the financial ramifications of having that one server snapshot, it isn't that big of a deal. If we started taking snapshots of every financial server we have, most of which are duplicates of each other, that gets really expensive and into a lot of redundant storage. What
manages that? Do you have something that rotates your snapshots out? Do you have, how long do you keep them? Do you keep 5 copies? You send the 6th copy off site. So that's, go a long way when you get away from these backup systems that have been around for decades. They just kind of incrementally getting more advanced and better. And if you throw that completely out the window, I think there's a lot that people miss that they're really going to miss when they need to have it.
Yeah, I think the backups have to be managed at a level above the VMs just to get those VMs into the backup system in the first place, and to make sure that they remain in the backup system. So it would become a question like, if people are self-servicing this, are they running cron jobs on a utility box somewhere that tell it to go take snapshots of their virtual machines, or how can we streamline that process to to make it easy for them and to make it less stressful on our storage system.
Yeah, I mean, and that's just a huge step backwards when they're doing that. I mean,
yeah,
we've really come a long way. I mean, right now our users don't think about backups.
Right.
And they probably don't want to think about backups.
Right.
I'm afraid that if we tell them you're on your own for backups, and here's your methods, snapshots, volume backups, good luck, they're probably just not going to do it.
Yeah. Well, and that's where, you know, I mentioned I kind of look up to Rackspace as a guiding light for us, you know, and we've talked a little bit about having our cloud environment be totally self-service versus a cloud platform that ETS, the group, helps manage client VMs in. If you're in that managed service level at Rackspace, backups are automatic. You don't have to think about it. If you're not willing to pay that fee for managed service at Rackspace, backups are on your own, but they do provide a very clear path for like how to very easily enable that on your machines.
I haven't actually looked at what Rackspace is in that regard. What are they offering?
So basically, it looks like, and I actually, I have an account at Rackspace, but I forgot the password, so I need to get it reset. I was going to get a virtual machine set up just to see what it's like, but it sounds like it's a traditional, you know, file-based backup, you know, with deduplication, stuff like that. I don't know how easy it is to get started. I don't know how easy it is to restore from the backups yet. But it does sound like kind of a traditional method.
So there is an agent that runs on the guest VM that backs up to the server.
Sounds like it from what I've seen so far. Like I said, when I get my Rackspace account unlocked, I'll get it set up with a server and see what it looks like.
My guess is they're not doing anything groundbreaking. Rackspace really hasn't done anything groundbreaking in a while, so.
Right. Yeah, I mean, well, it may very well be it's a repackaging of one of these open source backup tools that that we're looking at.
Yeah. So, and I would imagine they go to Swift.
Probably so, yeah.
So, backups. What else should we cover?
You know, the other topic that I had was just, it was a mini rant about focusing energy on different things. So, and you know, you and I have talked a little bit about this because you're interested in looking at a Puppet module for load balancing as a service inside of OpenStack. So I set up OpenShift at home recently. And one of the things that struck me about it was in the OpenShift documentation, they point you at a repository of Ansible playbooks. And those Ansible playbooks support bring your own machines, Amazon AWS, Google Cloud, and one other provider as well. But it was interesting to me that the project made it kind of a first-class problem to deal with configuration management of the platform, so that there is kind of a blessed way forward to configuration management of OpenShift installations. And you know, I compare and contrast that to what we have in the OpenStack world, where there's a lot of folks using Puppet. There's some folks using Chef. There was a book recently about using Ansible to configure OpenStack, and there's even a little bit of talk in the Salt community about configuring OpenStack. And it's a little bit frustrating to me that the community is splintered over how to configuration manage the OpenStack environment.
Yeah.
Because we've got a lot of engineers working on duplicated functionality when there's not actually one solution that does everything well. Like, it would be much more amazing to me if, and I'll use Chef as an example because we're a Puppet shop, so obviously like we like when folks use Puppet, but I would prefer a 100% solution using Chef than an 85% solution on 4 different configuration management tools. Right. So, you know, just a little mini rant there that's the sort of, that's a problem that I'm seeing.
Yeah, so I mean, the reference is, I mean, they use Puppet to deploy OpenStack in the community for I guess the default builds.
Yeah.
But there's a lot of people who just hate Puppet.
Right.
And I think it's really why these other ones really come into play, because I guess Puppet was one of the first to really break out, and I guess it had some shortcomings being the first.
Right.
And there's a lot of people out there who just absolutely hate Puppet, and then the ones who hate Chef also they run Ansible. So
right. Yeah, I mean, like, on purely technical grounds, I love that Ansible is Python under the cover and it's using that Paramiko SSH library. Like, back when I was doing SSH in a for loop, I was using Paramiko for all of that stuff. Like, at heart, I love it. And if we were starting to do configuration management from scratch today, I would beg us to use Ansible for that reason, like totally selfish reasons. But I sure love the fact that we have Puppet working as well as we do in our environment. It could be doing more, but the fact that it's doing as much as it is, I love, and I would hate to drag us away from that, just because of personal technical decisions. And
right.
I kind of see that's what's happening in the community. Like you said, people hate a tool so much that they're not even willing to use it as a path forward to one good configuration management story for the community. Ego, man.
Yeah, ego.
Plus somebody somewhere probably thought I could be the PTL of the Chef on OpenStack project, or the Ansible OpenStack on Ansible project, or something like that. But anyway, yeah, those were both of my kind of back pocket topics. Did you have anything you wanted to talk about?
So I guess we can kind of give some kind of update on where we are with the new build outs.
Sure.
And there's really not that much that we can tell yet. We're waiting on some answers back from different vendors, and
right.
So that's kind of where we are now. I believe we're in the final stages of really figuring out exactly what it is that we need, so that we can figure out what hardware we're going to buy and kind of get that moving. So it's been kind of a slow process with new releases of software coming out that support new features and maybe have drop support for another feature for a period of time. So this is it's quite a moving target,
right.
And that's we're hopefully getting a bullseye on where we're going to land soon. So
yeah, I think what makes it really difficult is for organizations our size, I feel like we're very early adopters, and being an early adopter is not something that our company is necessarily totally comfortable with. So there's been a lot of interesting conversations going on to make sure that we're building a platform that is as stable as possible, given how early in the game we are for OpenStack in an environment our size.
Yeah, so it has to be as stable as possible, with as many brand new bleeding edge features as possible.
Right.
So it's a little bit of a challenge there.
Definitely.
And so I mean, yeah, so we're really taking the time. We're trying to take the time to actually implement those features in the right way. And unfortunately, sometimes what happens is the longer it takes, the more things change in the OpenStack world, and then you have to reevaluate some things, and because they've changed, and so they might make you say, wait a minute, we need to rethink that decision because this other component just completely changed how it operates, or this vendor completely dropped support for this product and is shifting their support to another product.
Right.
If we want their support, we need to go with them. Oh, by the way, that's not going to be ready for another month.
Right.
So it's either we move too fast or we move too slow. hitting that right window is really becoming frustrating.
Right. Yeah, I mean stuff that we take for granted just because of the way that we've done things for so long. We opened up this call talking about load balancing as a service. That's going through a rewrite in the community right now for really good reasons. But it's also something that we would like to offer right out of the gate and have work immediately, both with open source implementations and with hardware augmented vendor supported implementations.
Yeah, I mean, load balancing is kind of a big deal with, modern computing. So,
well, yeah, I mean, so we're trying to tell everybody that it's cloud computing. You should be comfortable with, pets versus cattle, or even mayflies versus pets. Any of your servers, you should plan on them going away at any moment. Also, load balancing is tough for us right now. So, like, that's a very tough conversation to have.
And I have a feeling that a lot of the slow movement behind some of this stuff is because a lot of that layer has moved to the platform as a service level. So if you deploy a PaaS solution, you don't have to worry about load balancers as a service at the infrastructure level because your PaaS does it for you.
Right.
So I think there's probably I don't know if there's an abandonment of the idea in the community, but I don't think it's viewed as critical as it has been before, because I think everybody right now is thinking about PaaS.
Right.
So we should be thinking about PaaS. We're not there yet, so we do need some sort of infrastructure as a service level of load balancer as a service.
Yeah. Yeah, that's thinking about the types of services that we run in our company. As we look forward in time, I kind of envision 98% of those services living on top of a PaaS solution. We kind of focus on long tail services where we offer a lot of services that are each used by not a huge number of people. And so we can't expect those services to know about how to deploy themselves, how to set up load balancing for themselves. Being able to drop them onto a PaaS will be kind of a groundbreaker for us. I think it's going to ease a lot of deployment concerns folks have. And yeah, like I don't want each service to focus on load balancing. I look at it as hopefully infrastructure as a service is a way of automating away a lot of hassle for our system engineers. And then we drop PaaS on top of that, and that eases away a lot of the pain for application developers and deployers. Is that kind of the way you look at it as well? Was I muted that time?
Yeah, I think it cut out something.
It always cuts out when I get out my soapbox. So yeah, basically in short, I kind of look at infrastructure as a service, easing the jobs of system engineers like you, and PaaS easing the jobs of application developers and deployers above us for most of the services inside of our service catalog.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think the sooner we get to PaaS, the better. Some of the frustrating things that we're dealing with at the infrastructure layer just go away completely with that. So yeah, the sooner the better with PaaS.
Yeah, I think historically, and this has been the case ever since I started my career, long before I ever came to NIC. We were always putting a ton of services on individual sets of machines, physical machines and now virtual machines. Because provisioning those machines took a while and it was easy to add a second service to an existing host. That makes things a little bit messy in terms of configuration management. But giving each of those services their own virtual machines, we end up wasting a lot of capacity in our environment because each of those services doesn't actually need an entire virtual machine or fleet of virtual machines. So PaaS, yeah, allows us to kind of even out the load across all of our infrastructure without causing questionable configuration management issues.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's kind of all I had for this week.
Yeah, so that's about 30 minutes. So
looks like Bruno may have some comments for us here later, but he's currently in a meeting. So
cool.
Bruno, we're not ignoring you, but hit us up in chat, and then hopefully we can get you into the live chat next week. Sound good? And thank you for joining, Jared, and we'll see everybody next week.
All right, see you, Tom.